Hi, everyone, to the September edition of the Coachpreneur Project. As you know, we're all about evidence based wellness strategies and stories powered by lifestyle change and positive psychology. Um, this is a partnership initiative between me, Nivi Jaswal, your host, as well as Deborah Woods, who unfortunately could not join us. Deborah has had a medical emergency and she sends her deepest regrets, but she hopes to be with us next month in October. She is curating a wonderful, wonderful workshop on small group coaching for us all. So she'll join us then. Deborah and I, we met at Mayo Clinic at the Wellness Coaching Program, and we're very passionate about bringing creative community-based projects to life, and this is one of them. And we do this completely pro bono in an effort to foster community and connection. Um, uh, Here is a short agenda. We're going to start with our expert session very soon. We'll have coaching opportunities. This is a cozy small group. This is really nice for coaching opportunities. So please do ask questions and share if any of you, which I'm pretty sure because of COVID-19, there are needs for pivots and leaps and transitions that you need to make to your work. Please do ask Case. And with 10 minutes to spare, I hope I can do some takeaways and closing. But if not, and if the coaching demo keeps on, I think it's still good as long as we all feel that the session has been productive. But let's try and keep it to an hour for everyone's time. Here's a little bit about Case. Case Lane is founder of ReadyEntrepreneur.com. She's a global writer, entrepreneur, traveler, and her business prepares aspiring entrepreneurs to understand how to take advantage of technology and global resources to achieve lifestyle freedom by starting their own online business. Case is a former diplomat, a consultant, and corporate executive. She has been educated in communications, political science, business, law, and economics, and she has lived, studied, and worked in 11 different countries and has visited over 100 others. That is just awesome. The Ready Entrepreneur approach to lifestyle freedom is based on her education, experience, observations, and interactions with entrepreneurs all over the world. And Case's latest book, Recast, the aspiring entrepreneur's practical guide to getting started with an online business, focuses on the first 10 actions future business owners can do today to move forward with their success vision. So we will be talking about Case's book as well. Um, okay, great. With that said, I'm going to start. Welcome, Case.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you, and we're excited to have you and to learn from you. Let me actually start with some early childhood experiences that shaped your life and your career. Tell us about all the countries that you've experienced as a child.
I'll have to speak quickly or we won't get beyond it. I actually grew up in Canada. I heard, I think Teresa says she's in Canada. I grew up in Winnipeg and
Mm.
I was in the Canadian Foreign Service. So that's where I was. But we are an immigrant family. My father's Nigerian, my mother's Jamaican. And so I sort of grew up with the very solid idea that you have to do what everyone says you're supposed to do, which is go to college, get a good job, and stick with it. And I always in the back of my mind was interested in business, but I never knew what that was. What's entrepreneurship? I don't know. And you see these business people and you don't really understand how anybody gets in that position. Nobody around me was doing anything like that. So I just did all the things that one was supposed to do. And I followed that path. Now I did a little bit more glamorous, joining the Foreign Service and traveling the world, but it was still a government job at the end of the day. And I decided that I was talking to business people a lot. I was doing trade policy. So I decided to do an MBA. And then I did that at UCLA. That's how I ended up in the US. And then I was a consultant like Martin. I know that story. I got on a 747 every Monday morning for about a year and a half, almost 2 years before I left and ended up working in Hollywood behind the scenes. But those all the time, as I was driven throughout that experience of having professional careers and going back to school and doing that thing, that was always based on the fact that that's just what what I was told to do. Like that was the life you were told to lead. It was, and of course, again, it looked glamorous to everyone else. Like, oh, I didn't just take any job. I joined the Foreign Service and so on. And then but when I left the Foreign Service to go do my MBA, everybody thought I was crazy, right? Who leaves a government job? Like, it's so fabulous. You could do that forever. But I was very much in the back of my mind was always this idea around, well, you better, stick with what everybody says is the right thing to do. But I was also thinking, especially when I was talking with business people, and I was seeing all these different ways that people can live. And I lived in Manila in the Philippines, and my next door neighbor was also Canadian, but they were in business. And so they had the same kind of glamorous life. They just didn't have the nice passport, but they had way more money and they were traveling around and seemed to be having a great time. And I was like, there's something going on here. So I probably stayed too long doing what I was supposed to do. I think of that sometimes, but at the same time, when I see the opportunities now, what's happening online, I feel like, well, I'm just in time. So, we can talk a bit more about that as we go forward.
What a story. Wow. So you were international.
Yes.
As a child, and you had so many different experiences, and also when academically and professionally you've made all these leaps, you've taken these transitions, and you've really accomplished a lot. And you mentioned something that actually has stayed with me even before when we were talking, Case. You mentioned doing what we're supposed to do and doing what we're told to do versus really crafting that new life for ourselves and redesigning and not living with the default, but actually designing what it is that we want. And I'm pretty sure that everyone, on this call, as well as who's listening, who's going to be listening to the recording of this call, has at some point in time felt that, oh, did I just, come all the way here just thinking and acting as how I was expected to be behaving? Well, here's the thing though. There's some people taking the leap, and then there are some other people who think about it and they don't take the leap. What's the difference? And especially in COVID-19, that's amplified. So tell us about career transitions and taking the leap.
Mm-hmm. I think the difference is around sort of being, I'll use the term disappointed if that is, when you find out that maybe everything everyone says you're supposed to do isn't exactly what you want to do. So I was, my last sort of formal corporate career was a big company, big global company. And then I left to go to law school. And while I was in law school, I started ebook self-publishing. That's when I started my writing. And I'd always wanted to write. In fact, I had done a couple of years as a reporter. I worked in northern Manitoba for small community newspapers. And I was realizing like, this is exciting what's going on. Amazon and Smashwords have made it possible for writers to go directly to readers and no more middleman. And it's not like it used to be. And where your manuscript ends up in what they call the slush pile and so on. And then not only that, there was also in every other industry out there, there's this opportunity for you to go directly to the people who want or need what you have to offer. So that was exciting. Here I am in law school, very expensive, paying my way and everything, and thinking, why go and work for a firm? I know what it's like to work for a firm. I'd been in a big professional partnership. I'd been in, a big company. And instead I could be doing what I'm doing now on the side and turn that into a full-time business. And I think it was just this realization at that point. I had tried what everybody said to do. And yeah, I'd had good careers. I had a lot of fun. I'd met wonderful people. They were still my friends. I still travel the world visiting all my Foreign Service friends. But I realized that for me, I could take this opportunity to do what I really wanted to do, having tried, what I was supposed to do. And I think that's what, for me, that's what happened. I know for some people, they don't even bother. They know they don't like school, or they know they don't want to ever work for anyone else from the time they're like 12 years old or something. So they don't bother. But I had already gone through all those steps, and I felt maybe it was a bit of a validation that, okay, I've done that, and I know I can do that anytime. I think that's also a bit in the back of your head. If you're a professional, you've have your education, you have your skills, even in these tough economic times, if you've always worked, you could probably find a job if you really needed to just earn money. If that's all it was all about, you just needed to get some money. But if you're thinking that you really want to do what you've always wanted to do. Because for me, online business or entrepreneurship in general, it's not just about, okay, you get a string of income coming in from somewhere else. It's also about that professional satisfaction part. And I had worked in so many different places where I never thought that I had the opportunity to do as well as I could have done, simply because it's the way it's driving. The foreign service, of course, run by, the old guard, and all the corporations have their old cultures and everything like that. So what would have been the process for me to get what I really wanted to do? I think it would have just been a long, boring process with people I didn't really like. Whereas as an entrepreneur, I can just leap in from day one, be doing all the things that I really want to do, really using my skills, really using my talent. And it's just me in the marketplace. And, if people like what I have to say, then they'll want to work with me. And if they don't, then they won't. And so it's not like some sort of corporate committee that's kind of just, oh, you didn't smile at somebody one day, therefore, you don't get promoted. So it's really, and so when you start to realize that that's what the gamble is between that old life that is really not that satisfying and this other opportunity, which has unlimited potential to be whatever you want it to be, then it's easier to take the leap. And I think that's what people come to realize once they get into it.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And I'm pretty sure that um, there are just so many different types of realizations in that vein that people have from time to time that
Mm-hmm.
then spurs them to keep, wanting to make that leap and to take that chance.
Yeah.
Talking about taking chances, I was reading Sheryl Sandberg's book, she's the chief operating officer of
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, and she wrote this amazing book called Lean In, and
Mm-hmm.
leanin.org is this fabulous platform that she's created. And she publishes, they put out so much research about women
Mm-hmm.
versus men, and how
Mm-hmm.
women um, shy away from taking the chances. Sometimes, not all of them,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes they shy away from taking the chances and taking the leaps that they could have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed that in your consulting and in your coaching? Do you what some comments on that, please?
Yeah, I'm actually fascinated by this subject because in online, you would think that this is an industry that just appeared a couple of years ago, like long after the women's movement and so on. So it should be equal. And it's not. Like you go to a conference and most of the people on stage are one demographic, and you see who are the big, like if I asked you to name who are the big people online, who are the big gurus in something, you'd probably name mostly men because they're dominating this industry that was just invented, it feels like. So I wonder about what I've always thought about this, and I thought, I know there's a lot, and of course I'm generalizing, but there's a lot of women who take more time to think things through. So the long term, the men, their businesses, like they'll have 127 different businesses that all lasted 3 weeks, and the women will take longer and think it through, and so on. So it might take longer to get started and move forward, but then the businesses last longer also. And so I've seen this kind of, it's hard to say what success is. Whatever you define it to be, it's however you want to live with whatever you call success. But it's absolutely true, I would say, if you just counted faces that you see on Instagram, that the most sort of the dominant players in the online business industry are all men. And so that part does not make sense, what's happening there. um, but when you look in corporate life, and when people are making the transition to online business, what I have noticed is women take longer to think about it. And there are obviously other factors that are in play. People have other considerations about how things will be organized, who's going to look after their life and their family and so on. And men obviously have these considerations too. And I feel like that once they get going, though, then it's once you get into the process and you know what you want to be doing, then it's the same. But I feel that some of the men will grab onto something quickly and the women will think about it longer, but once they're in, then they go forward. So the only question I want to know is now, why aren't there more women at the top of the online business world at this point? And I'd love to, I don't know who's going to do that study one day, but around, what happened there, because it is such a new industry in so many places. And you'd think that there would be a lot more just equal, representation at this point.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yep. Um, well, you are on a book tour at this
Mm-hmm.
point. you've written your latest book, you've written many, many books, both fiction as well as nonfiction. Your latest book is Recast.
Yes.
And I know Deborah's gone through it. I've gone through it, and I receive regular email updates on Recast from your website as well. And we're talking about indecision. We're talking about not being able to build momentum even after deciding that, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. And I found some really amazing nuggets in there. But before we talk about all of that, what is the idea of Recast? What does it mean?
Yeah, so Recast, so I pulled the term from my Hollywood days, and at this point, it's about playing a new role in your own life. So what I found when I went, I went to law school, I started ebook self-publishing, and then I started learning about online business because of that. I started learning about how to put up a website and do reader magnets and lead magnets and all these things that I'd never heard of before. And people started to ask me what I was doing. And so I was telling them, and I started building the Ready Entrepreneur business around helping people understand what was happening at the beginning. But it really struck me around, people would say, oh, I really want to be an entrepreneur, or I've got an idea, it's a great idea, and so on. But then they just wouldn't keep with it, or they wouldn't get started. And I began to wonder what's really going on there. And I thought about how it's so different from what you're used to doing. And again, I did the status quo. I know what it is to sort of follow the right path in quotation marks. And I realized that people were kind of struggling with this whole concept of walking away from doing what they were supposed to do and actually trying to do something completely different and something very new. The online business world is all over the place. The internet tells you all sorts of contradictory things. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of, rah-rah stuff and so on. So I thought what worked for me was just I'm a big reader. So I started reading a lot around entrepreneurs and their life and so on. And I realized you have to start thinking more in that mindset. You have to think about things differently. As educated professional people, we think, well, we know everything, right? But when it comes to online business, there's so much more to learn. So you have to kind of change the way that you think and then approach things in a much more, a little bit of methodical, but at the same time, be prepared to constantly change and pivot. So I set out to write Recast in that term to help give people that framework. I'm a big picture person. So it was around seeing that big picture, not just about what online business is, but who you could be in this role. And as you're building out your business and you're connecting with your community and the people that you want to help, it's you need to think of yourself in a different position, that you are in this leadership role, and it's an automatic leadership role. Because I really emphasize being in your niche and making sure that you're attracting your perfect person and all that type of thing. So that means you're the automatic leader, like from day one, that you own that space of the internet. It's all yours, and that's a very different way for people to think, especially if you've been working and you're in a corporation or something like that, and you're just doing what somebody else told you. If you work at a corporation, you're fulfilling on somebody else's vision and somebody else's agenda. But when you do it for yourself, you have to create the whole story for yourself. And if you think, oh, I'm just one person, I'm not a corporation, but all those corporations started out as just one person as well. And many of them started out with that initial vision that they still, run through today. So you have to think about, what am I really trying to do here? Who are the people who want or need what I have to deliver? And I am that automatic leader in this particular niche. And so I'm differentiating myself from the other people in my field. How is that happening? So when I go to meet somebody, when I'm talking to somebody, what am I saying to them that allows them to realize that I'm in this different space, and therefore, you don't have to resonate with everybody. Almost everybody in the world is online. So 7 billion people. So you're bound to find who you want to be working with. So you don't have to resonate with anybody. You don't have to change your story because somebody's like, well, I'm not really looking for that. Okay, then that's not your customer, right? But when you really have to know who you are and what you represent and what value you want to deliver, so that you can then do that consistently. And that's so recasting is about that, is about really just thinking about yourself differently. Now you're an entrepreneur, you're working in that world, and not sort of, obviously you're part of society, but you're not in where you were before when you were fulfilling on somebody else's agenda.
Yeah, that's amazing. the thing that actually made me think about is with COVID, with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us forced into a lockdown, we're all online. Even
Yes.
the parts of our lives that were offline, a coffee or a meeting with someone or an
Mm-hmm.
appointment, or in the case of coaches, in person, face to face coaching, that
Mm-hmm.
paradigm has changed. And
Absolutely.
when that paradigm changes, then it forces us to actually look at our opportunity in a totally different way.
Yeah.
That people who we can be coaching, they don't have to be from the same zip code as us.
Right.
They don't even
Right.
have to be from the same neighborhood, same
Mm-hmm.
community as us. They could
Mm-hmm.
be from anywhere. And I know that in your book you talk a lot about leveraging global technology
Mm-hmm.
and really growing and nurturing, nourishing, and growing these wings that all of us have the capability of growing. But we didn't have to think about life like that because, well, we didn't have this microscopic enfant terrible controlling our life
Right.
the way it is
Right.
at this point in time.
Right. Yeah.
um, the idea of recast is even more relevant with COVID-19, and we all know it's here to stay, and therefore the idea of recasting is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are the most important considerations when you're starting an online enterprise, which is going to be very different, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
coaching industry where people are
Mm-hmm.
used to one-on-one, where
Yeah.
people where not just the audience that we talk to, but also the coaches, they feel like, hey, if I'm a touchy-feely person, I really
Mm.
care for this person, I really want to understand the nonverbals, right? And then you're suddenly forced to recast yourself in the online
Mm-hmm.
environment, where you don't know the person. They might choose to hide behind uh, uh, just the anonymity of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the online situation, and they could be from a different country, culture, different part of the country. What are the
Yeah.
important considerations in that context?
Yeah, absolutely. You've sort of touched on two things here. So the pandemic has made everyone go online immediately, and to much to their surprise for a lot of people, and it's forcing everyone to think about what you were just saying. This concept of how you continue to offer the same type of service through a screen and over over the internet. And so everybody is making that shift now, and it's happening even in the online business world. I don't know if you've seen this arena that Tony Robbins has had built, where he can look at 3,000 people at a time on a Zoom screen, because he wanted to continue to do his big events, and that's how he's doing it now. And so that's the kind of shift. That's obviously a technological shift, getting Zoom to build you a mega screen for 3,000 faces. It's that kind of thinking that is now having to, in every company, in every business, everybody's trying to think of, okay, how do I do what I'm used to doing, but now through a screen? And so the key, I feel, that for online business, and I should say that for online business right now in many ways is booming, because more and more people are online ever before. But your industry, for the same reason, is also booming because so many people are struggling with how they manage this life now that has just changed so dramatically from where it was just, well, I guess now I keep saying a few months ago, but now it's almost, what is it, more than 6 months ago or 7 months ago now. And so one of the things to think about is what the content that you're delivering. This is what I always emphasize with people. So many people go online, they say, well, I want a pretty logo, or I want a fancy website, or I want to do videos or something. All of that, you can get to that, but nothing is going to resonate with people unless they hear what they're looking for. If your content is, and by content I mean it could be, it could be the way you talk, what you're saying when you're talking. It could be a blog. It could be, it's whatever brings them to you. That's what's resonating with people, and that's what people are looking for. When you think about what's happening online, okay, everybody's online. What are they doing? They're searching. They're searching through Google and Amazon, even on Facebook. When people are scroll, and then they stop. Why are they stopping? What made them stop? A cute cat picture or something. But also sometimes it could be a wellness advertisement, because they see a headline that says something that resonates with them about how they're feeling right now. And so that's really important, is to think about your message. And I was kind of alluding to this earlier. that when you're getting set up and people get off offline on this by going down all these roads to all these other things that are, well, I was watching this YouTube video and I want to do this flashy thing and all this. And I'm always like, no. What is your content? What are you going to deliver? And you might say, well, I don't know yet. Well, or I don't know what form I want to do it in. So, there's the big three. If you like to write, you do blogs. If you like to talk, you do podcasts. And if you like to be on camera, you do videos. So you could think about that and then decide, I still don't know. So then I always say, which is the one that you consume the most? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you read blogs? Do you watch videos? Pick the one, where you're having the most fun, where you spend the most time anyway. Even if you sort of, well, I like YouTube, but I could never be on camera. Okay, but you like YouTube, so there's something there. And that's where we would start. And then create that content for that particular platform. And I know that a lot of people are afraid of this idea that, oh, well, I heard, podcasts are on the rise and blogs are falling, or YouTube is not the same, or there's millions and millions of people on every single platform. So you don't have to worry right now about which one you select. You just have to pick where you are most comfortable, because that's very important. Not only is it the content you're delivering, but you have to be authentic as you do it. People will pick up pretty quickly if you're just imitating somebody. And a lot of people like to, you can model people. I do that all the time. I go online and I see somebody's doing something cool. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of doing that with my Instagram or whatever. But you're not kind of going to copy them directly, because that's not sustainable. So you want what you're doing, it has to be sustainable. So your message you have to be very clear what your message is, so that your content is good, so that people come to it and they understand it. And then at the same time, you have a platform you're comfortable on. So if you like to write, you're going to stick with blogs, even if you keep hearing blogs are falling off. They're not falling off. Millions of people read blogs. And if you want to then transition later to a podcast or something like that, you could do that. But focus right up front on what's that content, what's that message. And of course, you have to know who you're delivering it to. I should say that. So when I talk about that, I also want to make sure that you understand that you're creating content for some specific type of person. There's this, sometimes there's an idea, well, everybody can use my help. And it's like, sure, they probably could. But at the same time, start with that narrow niche of people that you want to work with. And I always point out, you can always grow. Never forget that Amazon began as a bookstore, but not just a bookstore. It was a bookstore for books that people could not find. So it was even nichier than that. It was nichier than a bookstore. Amazon started as a place for people to buy books they could not find. And then, of course, today it's all the things that it is. So don't worry about starting small with, a very specific person that you want to work with, that you'd like to help, and then grow from there if you think that your message, resonates with a lot more people later.
Yeah, makes total sense, Case. You've mentioned about new role in our own life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big takeaway. That's a really important thing. So it's worth understanding not just this niche that we're going to talk to, but also the new role that we're going to be playing, because people will see us wearing that hat.
Yes. Yeah.
The second thing you mentioned was, how do you choose a format where you're having fun? And where you know that you can bring your authentic voice. The scrolls, the new search, and then swiping becomes the new search. And what you really want is when people are doing that really rapidly, really fast, what stops them in their tracks and makes them stop and look at your content.
Yeah.
So is that authentically created? Is that, is it your voice? Is your preferred format? You also spoke about prioritizing and starting small, but really zooming in to that audience. And when you look at all of these different things, there's got to be a process that you recommend. So what is the recast process? What comes first? Does my authentic voice come first, or does selection of the form and format come first, or does thinking about the target audience come first? What, in your view, should be that process?
Yeah, so I'll go two things. In the book, I talk about the first 10 actions. So I'll quickly go through. The first five are all foundational. And the first five, that's all about just getting yourself set up properly, because a lot of people forget that part. And now, everybody had to scramble to find a place to work in the past few months, but it's things like that: finding a place to work, removing your distractions, setting your schedule, and so on. So then we get into the actual business building, which is the next five things. And the first thing I always focus on is, well, what is your business idea? And for a lot of people, if you haven't thought of an idea, it could come from your interests and your skills, your hobbies. It doesn't have to come from your education and work experience. In your case, is different. You're all sort of thinking about this in terms of your professional skills. But for other people, they're not quite sure. They just want to do something online. So we go through that process. And then from there, we get to the research. So some of the other pieces I was talking about, deciding who your customer is and what your content is, that will come from the research. Because what you're going to do at that point is look at what's there. Now you have the idea in your head, and I always point out, where did you get that idea? So if you realize that there's a gap in your industry is not serving a particular group of people, so you want to fill that gap, or they're being served poorly, they're underserved, that's the opportunity. You spend some time in research to find out what's already there, what you like, what you don't like. Because again, you can model success. You don't, not copy, ethically, you don't copy people directly, but you can model successful approaches to see, and then you go through the process of deciding which platform you want to be on based on what I was mentioning before. Either you already know, because you like to write, or you like to talk, or you like to be on camera, or which one you like to actually consume yourself. So it's the idea, your platform, your community, and your content. You reach out to other people. That's the connecting part. It's very important to speak to other people about this process. A lot of people are a little shy about that. That's fine. You don't have to reach out to people directly if you don't know anyone personally. You can always do it indirectly by consuming podcasts in your subject area, watching videos in your subject area, documentaries. And then if maybe you know somebody who knows somebody, so you can go through a friendly intermediary who could maybe give you an introduction to somebody. Because what you want to ask at that point is how they built their business, what were some of the pitfalls, what were some of the obstacles they found, what's their advice. Now, not everybody, the problem is everybody's going to say something different. So, but you want to take in these different experiences so that you have an understanding of them, and then you can actually decide what would work for you. And this is the key that I put into my process, because when I started in this business, I just sort of jumped online and, well, that looks good. And I sort of followed that shiny apple and that shiny apple. And I academically oriented, so of course I took online courses, and I kept hitting these obstacles like over just not working. And then I realized, okay, I need to take a step back. That's why I created my process for people to just take a step back and figure out, what works for them in general, and then approach it that way. Have in your mind, when you go through the recast process, we get to the point where you create your action plan. I always call it an action plan, not a business plan, because it's the activities you need to do to actually get your business set up. And when you do that, you realize what you're missing. So when you hear a fancy speaker talking, or you watch a cool webinar, you don't automatically jump on it, because you've done your research, you've talked to people, you know what you need to learn, what you've already learned, you know what you like, what you don't like. So it gives you a way to make decisions about whether or not you should take a course, or do a retreat, or whatever it is. It gives you that opportunity. Having your activities list, which is constantly changing, your action plan is always evolving and updating and changing, but having that gives you a point of reference. So it helps you make decisions when you're getting all that internet noise thrown at you about all the different things that you can do. So the process is very much, it's in that research phase. Once you have your idea, I am going to help these people with this thing, or I have this solution for this X or Y. Once you have that, then it's the research phase that really starts to narrow down the important pieces of it that you need to do from there, which is your content and how you're going to manage on your platform. I don't get into the technical side of things. I have a general idea. But if you want to set up a podcast, there's all sorts of great resources that direct you to how to actually set up a podcast. But I do get into the part around assessing your own interests and your own skills and trying to decide then which platform would work best for you.
Right. Yeah. At this point, we're at 1:45. I just wanted to throw open the opportunity to some of our guests here to share a question or any observations that they have, and if they would like to get some answers and some coaching from your case. So guys, Bettina, Teresa, Martin, Susan.
I could jump in with something. I just, for professionals, I just, for a lot of people, I think this whole online business world is still a bit of a mystery, right? So they see everybody's doing it and it's, oh, bling, 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 and all these people making money and all that. And how's that really happening? And I think for educated professionals, it's even more like it's a scam or that type of thing. But at the same time, what's happening in the world today is really forcing people to take a serious look at having this additional revenue stream, having an additional way to reach people when you have to go online to reach them because you can't, meet them in person. And again, using your professional skills, like fully, like really, challenging yourself. And of course, having your lifestyle freedom. That's what we always talk about, this idea of having lifestyle freedom. And I think in the past, we used to think that having a 2-income household was, oh, like those people are odd. They have 2 incomes. And now we're going to be moving into this 3-income households, 4-income households, that people will think about having some kind of online business to supplement their lives, because everyone's had this rude awakening. Like right now, you think about all the people who listened to Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey, and they had 6 months worth of living expenses all stored away. But now we're in month 7. And so the instability is quite high for a lot of people who never thought that they would have to face it before. And so people are beginning to look very differently about how to secure, their lives and so on. And then obviously in your field, they're looking more closely about what it means to have a good life. And that's, you can see that those sort of the online buzz is around, what do we really value? And how do we want to manage our lives going forward? And what makes sense? And when these massive changes happen, how can we react? So there's a real need. So this is the true business opportunity, is also the fact that there's an incredible need right now for solutions. The entrepreneur's job has always been to find problems and put a solution forward for people. And right now there's a lot of problems and not enough solutions. So I always encourage everyone who's thinking about it to take the chance now. The opportunity is now. It's not as daunting as you think. You could start for free. The amount of time you put into it and the amount of effort you put into it is up to you. There's a lot of really good resources that are available to get set up, to reach out to people. As much as everybody hates Facebook, Facebook also has incredible tools for you to use to target people specifically. That's what people hate about it. But at the same time, if you like to reach people, people are self-defining what they're interested in, so that they gave that information to Facebook, and that allows advertisers to go in there and find people who've already said that they're interested in a particular subject, and you can target them directly and encourage them again through your words, your videos, your pictures, whatever you want to do with it. So it's not just it's not a fad. I think we call it online business today. It will soon just be business. And I also think what's happening is just a major part of how society is going to change, that it's going to be something that people take much more seriously, to do something online that's going to give them a little bit more security going forward. Hopefully we don't have to face pandemics every year, but I think people start thinking about, well, what else could happen? What could be next? And so it's a long-term thing. And if you start planning for it now and having your your business in place, you'll be ready. Hopefully there's not a next time in terms of a pandemic, but you're ready for however society evolves going forward.
Right. Teresa, I noticed that I didn't want to put you on a spot, but I noticed you unmuted yourself. Did you have?
Oh, I think I probably forgot or didn't realize that I was supposed to mute myself. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So does any of you have a question about your current business? A topic that you feel that you could bring to this forum and receive answers from Case. Martin, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a question. It's just an observation, and that is from my own coaching practice, even before I was a health and wellness coach, when I was doing executive coaching, I always worked remotely because most of my clients were global and they were in, I don't know, Singapore or wherever they might be. So I was always working either by audio phone or by a video connection. And even with health and wellness coaching, a lot of my clients are 1 or 2 or 3 time zones away across the US. So even before the pandemic hit, there's really been no change. So it hasn't been an issue of going virtual. The issue has been, particularly in the area of health and wellness coaching, I still find my kind of slightly glib way of putting it is people are still looking for the pill. In other words, they don't really want to commit to doing health and wellness coaching. So great, you lost 130 pounds and transformed your life over the last 6 years. That's wonderful. I've got diabetes or arthritis, whatever. I just would like to take a pill. I don't really want to go through all this work.
Yeah.
And that's what I continue to struggle with now for many years now. Sure, I have a few clients I work with, but people still want the quick and easy solution. So I had put together a presentation, and when I finished it, I went around, did it to many local organizations. So at the end of it, I said, there is something that will work. It's called ILC, and everyone got very excited. I talked about all the positive effects, no side effects. And I said, well, it's called intensive lifestyle change. And everyone would get crestfallen. And I didn't work with groups of 3,000, but I had groups of sometimes a couple of hundred, usually 50, 100, 75, 200 people. And finally it hit me one day as I reached that point in the presentation. I said, wow, you were all hoping for a pill. And they didn't laugh. They said, yeah, we want a pill. So that's the challenge I face. I'd be curious to know if other people in the health and wellness coaching space, that's the solution I'm still looking for. How do you get folks past that? Even the people who've had open heart surgery, the statistics are something like only 13% ever make lifestyle change that's lasting. Even the traumatic effect like that, it doesn't make them change. That's the mountain I still have to climb every time.
So would it be fair to say that that mountain is the mountain of motivation, that somehow that motivation is missing?
It's more than motivation. I think I'm looking for the quick fix. And I attribute that to people, even pre-COVID, but even now, being inundated with quick solutions. If you watch evening news, every commercial is for a pill. Literally, every commercial is for a pill. And my favorite thing is if you listen carefully, they're required by law to give you the side effects. The side effects always cause the problem that the pill is trying to cure. Whether it's diabetes, whether it's arthritis, I'm always tickled by that. So I think people have really come to believe, like now the belief is, well, we're going to get this vaccine, everything is going to be great. Probably not. There's still going to be issues with the pandemic. So it's a paradigm shift that needs to occur about what health and wellness means. It's about taking internal responsibility rather than giving it up externally and someone's going to give me something magical that I take. That's what I think is difficult. Part of it is motivation. Part of it is a mindset about taking accountability for one's own life and behavior.
Right.
So I'd be curious if Cass or anybody has any thoughts about how you've worked successfully to get folks to make that paradigm shift.
Yes, I guess the question really is paradigm shift online. How do you do it? And especially when you really don't have the person face to face, you don't have that, the leisure time and all those things that maybe a face to face interaction affords.
Yeah, well, online, of course, has this issue as well. There's a lot of people say you could make $1 million in 10 minutes doing nothing, and then people sign up for that, and you have that because that's very common. I think in human nature is we just, of course, we want the easiest way to do it. So then you look at then who is being successful by not promising that, by telling people that you actually have to do the work and so on. And what the one thing I've noticed is that they like to obviously show other people who've done it before. So they tend to have these case studies, and they let people talk about where they were and what they've become. And that's become the real story, is that transition. I'm taking you up the mountain. So at the bottom of the mountain, your health is bad and your life is miserable and so on. And we're going up the mountain. At the top is the joy and the fun. And that showing people or explaining to people the outcome, that you're actually going for the outcome, not, so they don't spend a lot of time talking about how much work it's going to be, but they focus on that outcome where you know where you are now, you know where you want to be. Here's other people, who've done it. And so let's stand at the top of the mountain together and let me take you there. And so I think that what I've noticed for the online business guru types that have been successful, that's one thing that they really emphasize is the final result is, not what the process is, but they focus on what the result is.
So focus on the spectacular view from the top, not the arduous climb to get to the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's a great point. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's a great point.
I would like to refer to what the Mayo Clinic framework also talks about, outcomes-based.
Right.
It's an outcomes-based coaching process. And the idea is that when we're trying to replicate that face-to-face experience online, given all the constraints we have at this point, how do we use, Case referred to it, transformational storytelling, such that when people are swiping and scrolling and searching content that we've put out, they actually see all these stories and anecdotes, which are all outcomes-based. Which is, and that automatically becomes really inspirational, and
Sure.
people are inspired by that. But that was a great question, Martin, and thank you for opening it up with your answer, Case, because you touched upon storytelling, you touched about outcomes focused, you touched about models of success, and then looking at people who don't necessarily talk about the process, which can be cumbersome and tiresome, but people who focus on something different. Susan, did you have a question? I saw you.
I did, and I just have a really quick observation on some of the advice that you just gave, Martin. So one of the things that stood out to me, Nivi, is when you said if you focus on outcomes based. Martin, my eyes just about popped out of my head when you said only 13% of people, post, heart surgery or whatever, are actively doing anything. Leading with a statistic like that would probably blow people's minds.
Yeah.
And make them say, why the hell not? Or what's going on here? Or what could I be doing differently? So I think that's really powerful. And you've probably got so much knowledge and experience to kind of provoke in that way. That's the thing that Case was talking about. Like we scroll and we stop, and that's something that stops people in their tracks.
Sure.
So anyway, that was just an observation. But my question for Case is, I've been a solopreneur for just over 2 years now. Everything you said about leaving the corporate world and not being able to do the things in your way, showing up in how you can show up and bring your skills, it just resonated with me. And that's why I left the corporate world. In that time, I've been pretty lucky that I have never actively sought out work. I just haven't. It's kind of come through word of mouth and, I hear you're on your own. Are you free in October? Great, sure. So that's how it's happened. But certainly with COVID, it's changed things, right? So, and my strength is in person, live. And of course, I'm showing you a picture of myself now, but it's the live experience and really being able to interact with people. And I think a lot of people aren't aware, like, Susan does that in-person thing. She doesn't do this virtual thing. I could create a video, put it on my website. I don't know how much traffic I'm getting. I created it myself. What I would love to know from you is, especially as a solopreneur, not having a lot of funds, where can you, like, what are some avenues or ways to start to get some of that? You have to spend money to make money, but where can you do this in a way that's impactful without truly breaking the bank?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, congratulations on getting the business up and running quickly. That's always difficult for people.
Yeah.
And in the transition, so there's a couple of different things. There's everything is a trade-off between time and money, right? So if you have a lot of time, the organic growth of your presence online is all driven through your website and social media. You can also, you talk about putting the video doesn't have to be on your website. It can also be on YouTube. And what people say, what they call SEO, which is just the search terms, the keywords that, again, people are always searching, and YouTube, people forget, is a big, big search engine. So there's a lot of the how-tos and I wish this and if I was and all of that, you could put those in. You could put your video up there and see what traction you get, And then the money one, of course, is using Facebook or Google or so on to run ads.
Yeah, the promotion, like push it or whatever.
Exactly. Now you can start for as little as $2 a day. I'm actually just doing that now. I'm running $2 a day ad campaigns on Facebook only to see which ad works. So, and then I would increase, like whichever, has the highest, what they call click-through rate, then I would increase the amount that I'm spending there. But I just start with $2. And so what it does is, as I was mentioning before, Facebook people are self-selecting. So it gives you access to Facebook for Business. Actually, anybody could sign up for Facebook for Business, but that's, it's a free site to sign up for, and that gives you access to all of their data. So you can start seeing how many people are interested in a particular subject, and you can, of course, narrow it by all the way down to cities and age groups and everything like that as well. And then you can get an idea. Okay, if let's say it's 1 million people, once you've narrowed it down, all these different things in your niche, then you can run ads to that group, and see what kind of a response you get. And then the other way, a lot of people are taking this virtual experience and making it, they're doing what they used to do, like conferences and so on, but doing it all virtually. So people are hosting masterminds, for example, and so they would set it up exactly as if it was going to be in person, but the whole thing will be virtual. And those are subject specific, and they're teaching sessions as well. That's quite popular, where people, say I'm going to be teaching for 2 hours on such and such a subject, and of course charging for it, and having people sign up for it and come and spend the time and be on camera for 2 hours and learning from them. So those are, it's the processes that are still out there are, again, time or money, but then the effort that you want to put into whether or not, if you want to do it organically in terms of putting stuff on social media, using, hashtags, and so trying to keywords and trying to pull people to you. The key is then you need to have some place for people to go to give you their email address, their information. You don't just want them coming to your video, but when they come to your video, you want a clear call to action that says sign up here. And then you want to follow up from that immediately. So sign up here, they sign up, they get your email address. And let's say you give a little PDF booklet or something like that on what you do. And then you follow up. You can follow up with an email, you can follow up with a phone call or something like that, and start bringing in new clients that way as well.
Very cool. Thank you so much. That, like, so many nuggets of wisdom there. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan, for that question. And thank you so much, Case. We're on the hour now, guys. Bettina, Teresa, do you have a question that you would like to ask at this point?
I had one, if there's time to squeeze it in. Something that Martin and I think have talked a little bit about, in that I just wonder, do you think in the current age of internet-based businesses that there's room for those of us who don't really like to be kind of in people's faces and having the pop-ups and the this and the that and the ad scrolling, and a big part of me doesn't really want to contribute to that, all that's going on in the world. And but I still, you know, have yeah, something that I do want to offer that I think does add value to the world. So
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's very difficult, again, for educated professionals, especially, to sort of do all that rah singing and dancing, whatever they're doing online. It just doesn't make any sense. And that means then that there's the gap, right? The most, you know, poorly served group online are the serious people who want to just get their information in a serious manner and, you know, have it delivered in a way that they prefer to consume it. So there's definitely an opportunity there. And again, you could pick any of the pathways, your blog, you could have a podcast where you're discussing these issues, talking to people. You can put videos up that are, again, more serious. And you don't, even with your social media, I don't sing and I mean, I like to dance, but I'm not doing it online. So you won't see singing and dancing on my social media. And I actually, one of the big revelations I had was listening to one of the gurus talk about how he got started by putting long posts on Facebook. He put long, serious posts on Facebook. He was a millennial trying to figure out life, and people really resonated with that. And he built his business from that. It was like a light bulb, like, oh, you could put serious stuff on Facebook, and if people see it, you know, it's one of these things. I'll sort of quickly do this analogy. I like, you sort of think of, you know, in the old movies, the medieval marketplace, when they open the gates of the town and everybody can come into town to sell their stuff on Sunday or whatever it is, right? So people come from the countryside, everybody comes in at the same time, and everybody's there and everybody's in the market. So what do you have to do in order to sell something? You have to get attention somehow. You have to draw attention to you so people will buy, you know, your potatoes or your cabbage or whatever, right? So it's that, you know, the traffic, as they call it, is all there. Like, it's all just sitting there. Everybody's scrolling and looking around. And so you have to figure out then, okay, how can I capture them? And usually, as I mentioned, it's by speaking their language, by saying something that resonates directly with people, because that's what they're looking for. And that's what will track them. So, but being serious is one way to do that, because that's not out there now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, Teresa. And Case, amazing analogy and such a visual analogy, right? Because we might be in the modern times, but it's as medieval as it can be. You know, Wild West on online and cyberspace. It just keeps getting more and more complex and complicated. But it doesn't have to be, because we have wonderful coaches like yourselves, you know, out there who are trying to help bust myths and demystify health and wellness issues for people. So thank you so much, Susan, Martin, Bettina, Teresa, for joining today and giving us your time. And Case, thank you so much. Congratulations on your book, Recast. I have a copy of it, and I'm loving it. I highly recommend you guys, in case you're looking for recasting, redesigning, refreshing your life, visit readyentrepreneur.com. There is a free PDF that you can get your hands on, and that will give you, you know, an idea about Case's, you know, perspective and the recast method that she's written about. Case, all the best for the rest of your tour, and thank you so much for spending time with us.
And thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time, and it was really great to talk with you all today.
Thank you so much.
It was great.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too.